Hello everyone, my name is Jim Garrity. One of the nasty things in life is a leaky roof. Rain coming into the house messes up the paintwork and it causes damp. It's one of those things that's got to be fixed straight away, and it's one of those things which is not necessarily as easy as you think. Just because you've got water running down a wall, it doesn't necessarily mean that the hole that's caused that leak is directly above it. Water has this property of popping out in different places, and sometimes it's really difficult to track it down. Well, it's happened to us. And follow our story as we try to find our pesky leak. Well, here I am in the conservatory that Anne and myself built a few years ago. We put an extension on the back of the house which brought it this way, and then we put the conservatory on the end of the extension. Now, the only bits we didn't do was the brickwork. We had a brickie come round to do that, one of my friends, and the plasterboard. We got someone in to put the plasterboard up and then put the plaster on. But everything else we did. We put the roofs on, we put the guttering in, and all the insulation and everything else that was involved in building the extension. And because of that, I was quite perturbed when a couple of days ago we started leaking water, and you can see along here the plaster has started to, or the paint has started to bubble away from the plaster, and along here we've got what looks like sort of coming out of the plaster. Now that is rather bad news. Now when I put this together, we have the gable end of the conservatory doing this, and we have the roof of the extension coming down towards us. So that comes down, the gable end is here, and I built a box gutter along the bottom. This here is the side of the box gutter. Well, that's plasterboard, but the box gutter is inside there. Now, when I built the box gutter, I was talking to different people, and the way that our roofs went meant I had to build a box gutter here. And several people said, "Oh, box gutters, they are awful, they give you problems." And I said, no, if they're made properly, I'm sure they're going to be, it's going to be okay. Well, we have this water leak, and of course the first culprit you think of is the box gutter. So I'm going to investigate this to see if I can find out where the water's coming in. You see, it's come along here. We first noticed it in this corner just above the slide door. If I pull the door open, that goes into the lounge, and it started here. It propagated along in this direction, and it also started coming down the wall as well. You can see the line here, and so all this section from the line to here was damp, and that went right the way down to the floor. On the inside of the conservatory, on the inside of the extension, it's completely dry. We've got no problems there, and there's no problems up in the roof, I'm really, really glad to say. But we do have this leak in the conservatory. So I'm going to investigate into this and try and find out what it is. First thing we look at will be the box gutter. I can hear people shouting, "What is a box gutter?" Well, a box gutter, or it has a lot of other names: internal gutter, parallel gutter, trough gutter. In the end, it's just a normal gutter, but it's a rain gutter on a roof. It's usually rectangular in section, and it may be lined with EPDM rubber sheet, metal, asphalt, or a roofing felt. It could be concrete, it could be behind eaves, or even a parapet. It may even sit in a valley between two or more roof sections. The box gutter that I made was a wooden trough covered in EPDM rubber. This is a wooden trough in the workshop before I covered it with the rubber sheet. This is that wooden trough covered with EPDM rubber. Notice here the rubber on the extension roof. This is where it stays. Roofing tiles are placed on top of it, preventing any water sloshing back into the extension if the gutter ever floods. Now, we've built the gable end of the conservatory. Rubber from the box gutter runs up the gable end under the brown plastic trim. Even if the gutter floods, it will not reach the top of that rubber, so it shouldn't penetrate the conservatory. I've made this sketch. It's a section through our box gutter showing where the rubber layer runs. Now remember, this is one piece of rubber, no joints to leak. The only way water can get through it is if there's a hole. The box gutter has a drain at each end to take the water away. I designed it such that if both of these drains blocked and the gutter flooded, the water would overflow at each end, preventing the water level ever getting high enough to flood either into the extension or the conservatory. This is why I'm puzzled. Where is that water coming from that's leaking into the conservatory? Climb up the ladder, have a look at the gutter, and this is what I find. Both drains must have blocked. The gutter has become a pond. Now, the water only seems to leak into the conservatory when it's raining. I know that sounds a bit obvious, but it's sunny at the moment and no water is leaking into the conservatory. Yet the gutter is full of water. That tells us the actual gutter must be sound. If the leak was coming from the gutter, it would carry on leaking until the gutter was empty. The leak has got to be coming from somewhere else. This is the box gutter. As you can see, it's empty now, and we've got rubber here which goes up underneath 2 layers of tiles. That same rubber goes around the box gutter and up the side of the conservatory here. So there's no way, unless there's a hole in the rubber, that the water can get down through the box gutter. Now, when the box gutter got blocked here, it was flowing over the top. Now, I'd taken this into account when I designed it, and the rubber that comes down the side here, I've made a drip edge here. Inside here there is a length of plastic rope, and the rubber goes around the rope, and then you can see it's held up by this strip of plastic here. So if anything comes over, it can't run along the bottom because that's higher than here. Now, I was wondering if where it came across right at the edge here, you can, if I can just get in, you can see that there's what looks like a little bit of lime build up there where the water's come down. And I thought, well, perhaps it's running along this side of the box gutter and getting into the conservatory that way. So what I did was got hold of the mastic gun, and I've now gone all along the suffix here, and or is that the faceplate? That's the faceplate, isn't it? Around the side and also up the inside here and there, just in case it was coming in. And you can see this little bit there. But all this it should be fairly waterproof, so I'm not sure. But we will know when it rains again. Well, it did rain again, and what do you know? Water ran down the wall in the conservatory once more. I was sort of expecting it. I didn't find using the mastic gun very convincing, but at least I know another place the water isn't coming from. Let's look at that wall before any plasterboard was placed on it. In fact, before the conservatory was even built. This image was taken just after I'd finished building the roof structure of the extension. I see something interesting. This is the position of our leak in the Finnish conservatory. These 2 stainless steel tie bars are where the cavity walls of the rear wall of the conservatory will join onto the wall of the extension. Now, look just here. It's a gap in the brickwork, and there are others, one here and here. Those gaps are there to drain any water that collects on top of the lintel to the outside of the building. Well, in our case, it's not the outside wall, it's where we built our conservatory. If any water came out of that hole, it would show round about where our leak is. The next problem is, of course, if this is where the water is coming from, how does the water get down on top of the outside of the lintel? This image is taken a couple of days later. I've been working as a labourer to my mate the brickie. You can see the conservatory back wall is built now, and there is that hole. The more I see it, the more I think this is where the water is running from. Let's go forward in time a month or so. Now here you see the ceiling of the extension partly insulated. Anna and myself have been cutting and fitting the 150mm thick insulation between the rafters. Now, as it happens, this chunk of insulation is about to be fitted into this slot here. There are 3 things of interest. 1, our gap between the bricks is just down there. 2, our leak is down there through the conservatory wall. 3, there is a hole in the roof just there. This is the underside of a tile vent. What is a tile vent? They are roof tile vents. Air and water can pass through the grill, just here. Water runs out through drain holes along the lower edge, and dry air can pass into and out of the roof space. This is a side view of a roof tile vent. I think the drain holes may be blocked just here. If the drain holes are blocked, water is prevented from running out of the tile. Instead, that water would build up inside the tile until it overflows into the loft space. Any water that passes through the tile will pour on top of the insulation. It'll run down the top of that insulation until it hits the wall. It will run down the wall, puddle on top of the lintel, and then flow through the gap to the rear of the plasterboard in the conservatory. Well, I think it's a good theory. Let's have a look. Suspicion has now fallen onto the tile vent. You can see the louvers on its top surface that the water and the air can flow into. On this side of the roof we have lumps of moss that birds pull off the roof above looking for insects. Water washes them down into the box gutter. Well, I'm wondering if small pieces of moss have entered the tile through its louvers and blocked the drain holes at the lower edge of the tile. If the drain holes are blocked, the tile will fill with water and then overflow into the loft space below it. Right, back on the roof with a very liquid bottle full of water. Now what I'm going to be doing is squirting the water into the grill on top of the air brick, and what I'm hoping is going to happen that it won't flow out straight away from the holes down here, and that will show that there's a blockage in the air brick and it will fill up and then pour the water through. So let's give it a go. Couldn't quite see because I was at full stretch, but I'm thinking that there's not much water coming out, so we may have found the problem. I'm out on the flat part of the extension roof under the upstairs windows. Below me are the tile vents, but right down there. I wrap an offcut of carpet round the end of a length of board. Slide the board down the roof till it butts up against the conservatory. The gable end is strong, there's no problem in taking my weight. Looking down onto our suspect tile, I see moss, stones and sand. Where did those little stones come from? I clean away the moss and the green growth and then look into the tile drain. That tells a story. The gap here is the gap under the tile. This is the gap where the water should drain through, but as can be seen it's fully blocked with sand and moss. Both sides of the tiles are in the same sorry state. Looking down through the louvers of the tile, I can see plants growing. It looks like it has its own little ecosystem going on down there. I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings, but I bend a piece of wire into a hook and go fishing up the drainage holes. The drainage slots in these tiles need to be larger. I drill a pilot hole, 2 in fact, then in with a 10mm drill. That's looking better. I get my piece of hooked wire and do some more fishing. Look at the pile of sand I drag out. Now I have a 10mm hole in the front of the tile, I can use my inspection camera through that hole to go have a look inside the tile. As you can see, there's still a lot of sand and plant growth in the tile. It takes me a while, but with my wire hook, that new 10mm hole and a squirty bottle of water, I clear it all out. There are 3 other tile vents in the roof. I check them out. None are as blocked as that first one, but all have some sand inside. I modified each of them with 2 10mm holes, and that will make it more difficult for the drains to block. There is one concern niggling at the back of my mind though. Will these new 10mm holes attract bees or wasps, or some other insect? It's wet inside every time it rains, and the louvers keep the top open, so let's hope that will keep them all away. So, has that fixed the leak? I clear the tools away and wait for some rain. And of course, now we want it to rain, we have a drought. It takes over a month until we have a good downpour. But by this time, the conservatory wall is very dry. And you know what? When we had that rain, it stayed dry. I'm glad to say we have fixed our leak. Or so it seems at the moment. And with that, it's time to say goodbye. Take care, everyone. See you next time. Could you do something like this? Of course you can.